Show you all the books I've read. Ooh. As you can see, I have a big stack of books here. 27 books. I just love Bridgerton. Like, I always think about Bridgerton. I loved this book. Next up, another somewhat controversial book right now. Anything bad that could happen out in the middle of the ocean on a private boat happened. This book was crazy. This woman. Hello and welcome back to today's video. As you can see, I have a big stack of books here. And because we're already in the middle of July, this is the perfect time to show you all the books I've read. Ooh. So far this year. 27 books. Okay, I wanted to start taking some of these stacks off of this big stack because I'm afraid these are going to fall on top of me. But I wanted to organize these based on genre and then we will talk about them. So I will be back. Okay, starting off strong with romance. I read The Selection by Kiera Cass. This is the first book in the Selection series, which is a YA dystopian romance. So basically 35 girls get selected to participate in what is called the Selection. And that is their opportunity to kind of get out of the rank that they are forced to live in based on careers and money and wealth and their place in society. So it gives them the chance to participate in the selection to become the next princess. Well, America gets chosen to participate and the prince quickly takes a liking to her. And at first she's a little offstandish toward him, but she starts to develop a little bit more warmer feelings towards him and they kind of become friends, and she agrees to meet with him and give him feedback on who he should actually choose to be his wife. But then they end up growing feelings for each other. It's really good, and I haven't read any more in the series, but I do plan to finish this series. There are 5 that's in the series, but it's really cute, it's really good, and I really enjoyed this one. And I gave this 4 stars. Okay, up next, a very popular book that you've probably heard of, and this is actually my second time reading it, but I read it again back in the winter. Finding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is a high school romance that takes place in Ireland. There's rugby. You have Shannon, who is this tiny girl. Everyone thinks she's so fragile. She had been bullied all of her life, and she actually transfers to Common College where she meets Johnny, who's this hotshot rugby player, and they quickly become friends and start to develop feelings for each other. And it was so good, so emotional too, and I do plan to continue this series. This is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series, and I gave this one 4 stars. Up next we have Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This is my first Francine Rivers book and I really love this. I actually watched the movie first before I read it and it was so good. It takes place in California's gold mine period in the 1850s, and we follow Angel, who has lived a very tough life, and she meets Michael Hosea, who wants to help her out of this tough life and give her a life of love and purpose. And it was just so good. The movie was excellent. I loved it. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Okay, so I realized that the ones we've talked about so far have been 4 stars and not 5 stars or 3 stars or 2 stars or whatever. Let me explain. If there is a 5-star read, I usually can feel that. And I know that that story is always going to live in my mind. Like, I'm always going to think about it. And while I'm reading it also, I don't want to put it down. I just want to binge it. So that's kind of how I give my 5 stars. So my 5 stars go toward the books that I simply just cannot put down. Like, nothing can disturb me until I finish that book, and it lives in my mind all the time. Like, I'm always thinking about it. These books so far don't really live in my mind all the time, and I didn't feel like I wanted to just sit there in one sitting and try to finish them, but they were still extremely good. You know what I mean? Next up we have Lulu's Cafe by Tia Lo. Tia Lo writes these really cute, wholesome southern romance books. I've actually read a couple. One was Indigo Isle. I think we read that for book club, and then the other one was, I think it was Beach Haven or something like that. They're really good. I really like the characters. The romance is cute and it's wholesome, closed door, and I liked that too. And this one was really good. This was about a woman named Leah who is on the run from her abusive husband. She automatically gets drawn to this small southern town and the people who live there, especially Lulu, who owns this really cute cafe, and she actually offers a job to Leah to kind of lift her up and get her feet up off the ground, and she gives her a place to stay. And then Leah actually Ashley meets Mason. He's a lawyer in town. He is very suspicious of Leah at first, and it was like, Lulu, what are you doing? You don't know this lady. Why are you giving her a place to stay, giving her a job? You don't even know her. She has some kind of story. There's something about her. Something's going on. But then that quickly changes and they become friends. It was really good. And I actually did give this one 5 stars because I couldn't put it down, because I wanted to find out what happened between her and Mason. And I just loved the characters. Lulu is just a sweet lady. All the characters in this book were awesome and I really enjoyed this one. Okay, next up, because I love Bridgerton, and because, you know, the new season came out with Benedict and Sophie's story, I wanted to reread. I've already read this. I read it years ago, but I wanted to do a reread before I watched the new season. An Offer from a Gentleman, which follows Benedict, Bridgerton, and Sophie Beckett's story. Sophie is a housemaid for this very obnoxious woman who actually married Sophie's dad, but Sophie's dad passed away when she was younger. Her stepmom was like, you can live here and I can feed you and put a roof over your if you are my housemaid and you do what we say. So it's Sophie, her 2 stepsisters, and her evil stepmother, which is kind of like a Cinderella retelling sort of there. Well, she sneaks into this ball one night. It's a masked ball, and she meets Benedict there, and Benedict just falls head over heels for her. He has to know who she is, but before he gets her name, which she was refusing anyway, she leaves because it was almost midnight and she needed to be back before her stepmother and her 2 stepsisters get back. So he doesn't know who she is, but he fell in love with her, and then he ends up saving her from like some rowdy dudes and takes her to his cottage that he lives at sometimes. And then they start developing feelings for each other there. They become friends and they develop feelings for each other. And it's just cute. I love it. I love Bridgerton. Love it. I gave this one 5 stars too because I just love Bridgerton. Like, I always think about Bridgerton. It's very good. Okay, next up we have The Deal, which is the first book in the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. And I actually read this one years ago too, but I did a reread because the show that just came out. This follows Hannah Wells. She's a very studious girl. She does not get distracted. She is just totally focused on schoolwork, but she has a crush on Justin and she's trying to get his attention. Then you have Garrett, who is like the best hockey player ever at their school, and he's actually on the track to become a professional hockey player. He is failing a class and needs Hannah's help because Hannah's doing really good in the class, so he wants her to tutor him. In exchange, he will help her get Justin's attention, and so she agrees reluctantly, but she agrees, and of course they start to like each other. I can't wait to read the second book. Can't wait till the second season comes out. I just know it's going to get better from here. And I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, next up we have Into the Blue by Emma Brody. This was a Reese's Book Club book, and also I was just so intrigued by the cover. Like, I think everyone was. This really became popular in May and June. Whenever it first came out, it was very popular for a while there. It starts out in the year 2000. You have AJ, who works in a video store, which is very nostalgic. I love that part. And she meets Noah, who is from this family of actors, and AJ's dream is to write for Saturday Night Live, and she's really obsessed with this show. It's like an intergalactic show that Noah's aunt was actually an actress in. So they actually start training together and running lines together with his aunt, but then he just disappears one day without a word, and then they meet up years later in New York City, where they're both cast into this same intergalactic TV show. So they're kind of forced to deal with what happened years ago and their feelings for each other. And I really liked this starting out, but when I got about maybe a third or halfway through it, it just kind of started leaving me. I don't know, I just feel like the middle part of it just kept going on and on and on and on with the same stuff. But I did like the beginning and I did like the ending. I feel like some of the acting stuff, like, you kind of had to know what was going on, and sometimes it was a little bit hard to follow, but it was still good, and I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, next up we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I wanted to do another reread of this. I read this 4 years ago when it first came out, and I wanted to reread it for the show that just came out. There's so many shows that's been coming out that's based off books, but it's called Every Year After, so it follows this book. And I wanted to do a reread, and I loved it. I actually enjoyed this way better this time than I did the first time. I just really took my time with it and just enjoyed it a lot better this time around. So this follows Percy, whose family bought a house in Barry's Bay, so it's a summer house, because she doesn't really have a lot of friends and they're kind of worried about her. And they think that having this little vacation home that they can go to in the summer would be a great escape for her. And she meets Sam and his brother Charlie, and they become friends, and throughout every summer they hang out. Sam and Charlie are actually from Barry's Bay, and their mom owns this restaurant, and they quickly become friends and they swim together and they hang out every day during the summer, every summer. And Percy and Sam are so connected and they become such good friends. And then they actually start dating, but then something happens and that kind of just ends. Well, then fast forward years later, Charlie and Sam's mom passed away and Percy goes back to Barry's Bay to attend the funeral, where now her and Sam are forced to deal with everything that happened and kind of communicate like what happened, how are we going to deal with this, and figure out their feelings for each other if they're still there and how they're going to move forward. But it was really good and I gave this one 5 stars. And then next up we have another Carly Fortune book, Meet Me at the Lake. I absolutely loved this book. You have Fern, who is living in the city and working at a coffee shop. She meets Will Baxter, who is an artist who is painting a mural at one of the coffee shops she works at. And at first they kind of pick on each other a little bit. There's a lot of banter there. And then he gives her a tour of the city because she really never got to see it because she'd been so busy with school and everything. And they actually really become good friends and they agree to meet again at Fern's lakeside resort home. She grew up in a resort. Her mom owned the resort. She grew up there. And he never showed up. And then years later, they actually bump into each other again at the resort because her mom passed away. So she's there to deal with the resort and figure out what she needs to do, if she's going to sell it or try to get it back on track and do some updating and renovations. And come to find out, her mom, before she passed away, actually had called Will for his help because he had stayed there the year prior for a friend's wedding. That's how he met her mom. And she wanted his help with some plans and renovating and strategy to try to get the resort back up on its feet because it had been kind of doing not bad per se, but their business had kind of been going down a little bit, so they wanted to try to do something to bring that back. So they reconnect there and figure out what the heck happened and how to fix it. And it was so good. I loved Meet Me at the Lake. 5 stars. And then the last romance book that I've read so far this year, Just Friends by Haley Pham. I loved this book. This was so wholesome. It was so cute, so sweet. Haley, for your first book, this was 5 stars for me. This was so good. This was our local book club's book choice. I think it was for June, but it follows Blair and Declan, who are childhood best friends, and they had actually started, I think they started dating when they were teenagers. And Declan gets hurt and Blair's trying to go to college and just things are not working out, so they drift apart. But now 4 years later, Blair is back at their hometown because her great aunt is sick and she's there to help her mom take care of her. Since her life has kind of been put on hold and her plans have been put on hold, she needs a job to help her mom. So she applies at the local coffee shop, and that is where Declan is the manager. So they reconnect and deal with the past and why she avoided him and he avoided her, work through all their problems. I love this book. Okay, so that was all the romance books. Okay, I had to move from out of the floor because my foot fell asleep. Anyway, now we'll talk about the fiction books I read, starting off with The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is kind of a controversial, I think it's a banned book now too. But I started watching the show and I loved it and I had to read the book. This is a dystopian book and it follows June, that's her real name, or Offred. Offred is her new name now, in this totalitarian world and country of Gilead. There had been environmental disasters and the birth rate started to decline. So then there was a second American Civil War, which led to the establishment of Gilead. And in Gilead, women who can still have children and reproduce become handmaids, and they are subject to doing whatever the commander and his wife ask. They get new names, they have to wear this red with the white hat. That signifies that they are a handmaid. And one of the main duties of the handmaids are to produce children for the commander and his wife. And this book follows Offred, who is a handmaid for one of the main commanders of Gilead. There's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of uncomfortable situations that go on in this book. Would not recommend for kids, adults only. But I really liked it. Sometimes I like stepping out of my comfort zone and reading things that are not always sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. You know what I mean? Let's see, what did I give this one? I think I rated it 5 stars, but let me see. Yes, I rated this one 5 stars too, because I really liked it. It was very different, very, I don't know how to put it. If you've read it, you know what I mean. Next up, another somewhat controversial book right now that's been all over Book Talk, BookTube, Bookstagram, Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. And I actually really liked this book. The whole premise of this is what drew me in. This is about a trad wife influencer who has this huge online following on her social media platform. She romanticizes the trad wife life. But then she wakes up one day in this pioneer 1800s lifestyle that she had been portraying online. This was so good. The ending, I didn't see that coming. I had all these other theories, but not that theory. Oh, also, I want to preface by saying you are not going to like the female character, most likely. She's extremely annoying, obnoxious, and insufferable. We're not supposed to like her. And honestly, I kind of like reading books about characters I don't necessarily like. I think it kind of just, it makes the book. Especially this one. She had to be unlockable in order for the story to actually work. I also gave this one 5 stars because this was unlike any other book I've ever read, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next up, we have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I had read Beartown and My Friends by Frederick Bachman, and I really enjoyed those books. This was also another one of my local book club's book choice. I can't remember which month it was, April or May or something like that. So this book follows 8 strangers who are all viewing this apartment. So they are at an apartment open house. Well, then this guy just bursts in like a ski mask, and you can tell he is like a robber, so they think that he's there to try to rob them, but is actually running away from a bank robbery that totally failed. But then as time goes on, you know, he's kind of holding them hostage. Turns out he actually needs more help than all these strangers do. And then the ending got me too. Like, and I actually watched the show. I can't remember if it's on Netflix, but there's a show that's based off of this, and it was pretty good. I actually really liked this book, and I gave this one 4 stars. Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. This book follows 3 sisters, and their last name is Blue. You have Avery. She is the oldest sister, and she just recovered from being a heroin addict. And now she's a lawyer who lives in London. Then we have Bonnie, who used to be a pro boxer, and now she works as a bouncer at a club in Los Angeles. Then we have Lucky, who's the youngest sister. She is a model in Paris. And they all had another sister named Nikki, who had recently passed away. That left the whole family, everything just got thrown off. And they've all had to deal with it in their own way. They haven't kept up with each other as much as they want to. They haven't been there for each other as much as they probably should have. So you kind of get a glimpse into each sister's life and all of the personal things they're going through, while also trying to work on their relationship together as a family. And I really like this book. I gave this one 4 stars, 4.25, but it was really good. And then the last book in sort of my like just fiction genre that I've read so far, Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey. This was also another local book club book choice, and this follows a woman named Franny. Franny has always had a hard time just sitting still. She just had a hard time settling down. She just wants to up and go all the time. She goes to Greenland to follow the migration of these nearly extinct birds to Antarctica, which could very well be their final migration. She talks herself onto this fishing boat, and you learn that there's some things that have happened. I feel like this is more of like a future dystopian kind of world. Things have happened, and now fishing is starting to become illegal, but she is kind of dealing with her life's choices and regrets and things that she's done while on this journey. The book was okay. Like, it wasn't not my favorite book, and I don't ever find myself rereading this. I gave this one 3 stars just because I kind of started to get a little bit bored in the middle. I kind of got a little bit confused about what was really going on. It was okay. Okay, so that's all of my fiction books that I've read so far this year. Now we're going to talk about the fantasy / dark academia / sci-fi books I've read so far. So starting off with Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. This book takes place in a magical Los Angeles. My camera died, so I switched to my phone. This book takes place in Los Angeles, but it's like a magical Los Angeles. And there's this professor who teaches her students about the myths and legends of the city, which most of these students don't really believe in these myths and legends, but Holland does, and she's always thought that magic was real. Well, she actually tracks down a local legend whom her professor had talked about before called the Watchman, and the Watchman supposedly can tell people when they are going to die. Well, Holland actually finds the Watchman, and he tells her she's going to die at midnight unless she finds the alchemical heart. So she meets this guy, and they go racing through the city and go into the depths of the magic of the city trying to find this alchemical heart as the clock is ticking. This was really good, something I'd never read before. I gave this one 5 stars. The next fantasy book I have is Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. This is the first book in the Shatter Me series, and I actually read this a couple years ago, and I decided to reread it because she came out with another book, and I ordered all of the books in the series, all the novellas, and I actually did a reading vlog on Shatter Me, so go check that out. And I plan to finish the series and do reading vlogs on each book and novella. So this takes place in a dystopian world. We have our main female character Juliet, and Juliet is very dangerous in the fact that whatever she touches, they die. She has a lethal touch. Well, the reestablishment wants to use her as a weapon, but Juliet does not like what the reestablishment has done and does not want to be used by these people for their own plans. And she meets this guy Adam, who she actually knew when they were kids. She and him grow closer to each other and have feelings for each other. But she also meets Warner, who is the son of the main reestablishment guy. He's very crude, very mean, but there's something about him. I think he actually likes her, so I guess I will find that out. And this story starts out with our main female character Juliet, who has been locked up in this dank, dark prison for 264 days. She hasn't seen anybody, she hasn't talked to anybody. She keeps a notebook that she keeps hidden, and she has a pen, and she keeps count of how many days she's been locked up. Well, then Adam becomes her cellmate, and they actually break out of this prison. That's kind of what this first book is about, and I really enjoyed it the second time around that I read it, but I gave this one 4 stars. And next up in the fantasy books that I've read so far, 7 Deadly Thorns by Amber Hamilton. This was one of my Fairy Loot editions. Look how pretty that is. I love Fairy Loot. I'm not sponsored, but I love Fairy Loot, and I wish that they would sponsor me because I get a Fairy Loot subscription every month. I was on the waiting list for forever, and I get the YA fantasy books, and they are all so pretty. So this book follows Viola. Her magic has been hidden because it has been deemed dangerous to other people, so her parents tried to hide her. So therefore she's trying to hide her magic from people because it's some type of darkness. And if the kingdom, Aragoa, finds out that she has this dark magic, then that is a death sentence for her. Well, the queen actually finds out about her dark magic, and she sends an assassin, which is her son, who also attends school with Viola, to assassinate her. His name is Rose, R-O-Z-E, and his mother, the queen, gives him a tattoo with 7 thorns on his arm for 7 days, and if he fails to assassinate her, each day he loses a thorn until he is completely destroyed, if they all disappear. Well, they start to like each other, so he wants to protect her, and he acts like he's this bad, mean guy, but in all reality, he's actually got a good heart. I actually enjoyed this book. This was actually really good, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, next up we have A Dark Academia, The Otherwhere Post by Emily J. Taylor. This reminded me of Divine Rivals. So we have Maeve, and Maeve has a fake name. She doesn't stay in the same place for very long because she wants to hide herself away from her father's crimes. Well, then she gets this letter, this very mysterious letter that says your father was innocent. So she wants to find out the truth. She wants to know if her father's actually innocent. So she poses as an apprentice at the Otherwhere Post, and there she gets trained in the art of scriptomancy, which is magic that allows couriers to enchant letters and deliver them across other worlds. And then she meets a mentor, kind of like in Divine Rivals, and it's just really good. They go on this little journey together to prove her father's innocence, and it was so good. I liked it. I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, and then we have my one sci-fi book that I read so far this year, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I watched the movie and I absolutely loved it. I watched it before I read the book. It was so good. I've never cried over a rock before. Well, a rock alien, okay? Rocky. Until that movie. It was just so good. Oh my gosh, I loved it. So I immediately had to read the book. And this follows Dr. Ryland Grace, who has been sought out by basically the world's governments to go on this mission to try to save Earth, because what's happening is there's something that's drawing energy from the sun, and so the Earth is going to get colder and colder. The crops are not going to grow, people are going to die, animals are going to die unless something is done to save them. And Dr. Grace is like the super smart scientist, and he knows about all the science, astronomy, physics stuff, so that's why he got sought out. He was actually a school teacher, but then they came to his school and was like, hey, you need to do this. And he wasn't going to be one of the astronauts, but he actually gets sent into space, and he's the only one there. He wakes up from this coma. He's the only one that's still alive, so literally the world is on his shoulders. Like, he has to do this. And he meets Rocky, and Rocky's on the same mission that Dr. Grace is on to try to save his planet, and they work together, and it's just so good. It's so adventurous. Now, I did get a little bit caught up in some of the science-y talk. There was a lot of that, and it's not that I didn't really understand what was going on. It was just that there was so much, which I get. I know that that is part of the story, but I love this book. I think I like the movie better. I never say that. The book is usually always better, but I really love the movie, and I gave this 4.25 stars. Okay, and then the final genre of books I've read so far that we're going to go over are my mysteries and thrillers. Okay, starting off strong with a Frida McFadden book, The Housemaid's Secret. So I read, well, let me back up. So The Housemaid is like one of my favorite thriller books ever of all time, and I read it a few years ago, and then I reread it when the movie came out. So I started to go through the Housemaid books. So I read this one, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Kind of the same premise, but not really. But it was so good. So you have Millie, who gets hired on as a housemaid. She's met the husband who actually hired her on, but she hasn't met the wife. She's always locked up in her bedroom and never comes out, and she's sickly, supposedly. So it's kind of the same premise as The Housemaid, so I don't want to give too much away, but this one was equally as good, and I gave this 5 stars. Going strong again with a Frida McFadden, Dear Debbie. This book was crazy. This woman, Debbie Mullen, she was out there. So Debbie is an advice columnist. She is a wife. She is a mother. But lately, nothing's been going right. She actually loses her job. She feels like her husband's keeping something from her, and her daughter's dealing with something. Well, then Debbie starts to seek revenge on all the people who have done her and her family wrong. This was so good. I think I gave this one like 4 or 4.5 stars. It's a Frida McFadden book. I always enjoy them. They're always quick reads. They're just so good. They're so bingeable. I reread The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, and then I read The First Time I Saw Him because this was another local book club book choice, and I wanted to reread this one to refresh myself on the story before I read this one. So I read both of these. I watched the show. Actually, I need to start the new season. I haven't started it yet. So the first book follows Hannah Hall. Hannah's husband, Owen, goes missing, sort of. Like he runs because there was something that happened with his company, with fraud and stuff. And this kid delivered a letter to Hannah, and on the letter it just says protect her, and she knows it's from Owen, and the her that's mentioned in the letter is Owen's daughter, Bailey. So now Hannah and Bailey are trying to figure out what the heck happened, where is Owen, what's going on. So they have to work together to try to figure out what happened. And then this book picks back up 5 years later, and I actually liked this one better than I liked this one because you get to meet more characters and finally learn the truth. I think I gave this series, it was 4 or 5 stars. I can't log into my Goodreads account because I'm recording on my phone, so I really I think this one might have been a 4 and this one might have been a 5. I'll put it on the screen, but these were so good. Love those. And I read Colleen Hoover's latest book, Woman Down. This has been a while, so I'm trying to refresh myself on what it was about. Oh yeah, so it's about an author, Petra Rose, who sort of kind of gets canceled because the latest film adaptation of her book removed some really important parts that were in the book. Yeah, that's right. So then she goes to this cabin by herself to seek inspiration and to kind of just get away from the backlash. Well, then this detective shows up. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. This detective shows up. Then they start pretending to be characters in a book. So then the lines between reality and what's fake start to get blurred and lines get crossed. Yeah, that's right. But there was something strange about him. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like this book. Not my favorite book, not my favorite Colleen Hoover book, but I did enjoy it. Kind of sort of had like a Frida McFadden feel a little bit. I think I gave this one 4 stars. Next up we have Mad Mabel by Sally Hepworth. This was another local book club book choice. I love this book. I love Mabel. She is just this grumpy old sarcastic lady, and I love her. And Mabel was actually accused of murders. I think she was the youngest Australian to be convicted of murder. And throughout the book she's kind of telling her story about what actually happened. And then there's this little girl, Persephone, who is a neighbor of Mabel's, and all she wants to do is talk and hang out with Mabel all the time. Mabel gets annoyed with her, but you quickly learn that she actually has a soft spot for this little girl. This book was just so good. I love this. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Okay, and then my final thriller / mystery book that I have read so far this year, What We Did to Survive by Megan Lally. This was a book that was on my Summerween reading list for the summer. This was actually really good. This is a YA thriller. This follows Hannah, who is in Mexico with her best friend Emmy and Emmy's family on spring break before their senior year of high school. And Emmy's brother Jackson is there, and Hannah's always had a crush on Jackson. Well, then they meet this guy out in the ocean who is very wealthy, and he immediately falls head over heels for Emmy, and he wants to impress her. So he charters a private boat so they can spend their last time of vacation out on this boat with him. They go to get on this boat, and it's really stormy, and they're like, you know, should we do this or should we go back? And they actually go out on the boat. Their boat is the only one that leaves the marina, and that's when things get chaotic. You have the captain of the boat who gets extremely drunk and passes out, and then, you know, Emmy's new boyfriend gets in a fight with the captain after waking him up from his drunkenness. Things just happen. It gets out of hand. People are getting hurt. They don't know if they're going to make it back to land. And I mean, it's a whole thing. Like, anything bad that could happen out in the middle of the ocean on a private boat happened. This was crazy, and I loved it. And I think I gave this one 4 stars. So that is it. I have read 27 books so far this year. Not too shabby. Let me know if you've read any of these books that I've talked about. And be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more bookish content. I'll be posting more reading vlogs, more bookish vlogs, more summer Fridays. So stay tuned, and I will see you in my next video.